The rain had been falling for 3 days straight, and Maya Chun found herself staring out the window of her corner office, watching droplets race down the glass like tears she couldn't shed. At 32, she had built what everyone called a successful life, a thriving marketing firm, a beautiful apartment in the city's heart, and a carefully curated existence that looked perfect from the outside. But as she watched the storm rage beyond the glass, she wondered if this hollow feeling in her chest would ever go away. Her phone buzzed against the mahogany desk, pulling her from her thoughts. A text from her assistant, the new creative director, is here for the 3 p.m. meeting. Conference room B. Maya straightened her blazer and gathered her files, unaware that her world was about to shift in ways she never thought possible. She had hired David Martinez sight unseen, impressed by his portfolio, and the way he spoke about storytelling in their phone interview. What she hadn't expected was the way her breath would catch when she walked into that conference room. He stood with his back to her, studying the mood board on the wall, his dark hair slightly tousled as if he'd been running his hands through it. When he turned to face her, Maya felt something she hadn't experienced in years, a flutter of genuine attraction that went beyond the superficial. His eyes were the color of warm coffee, and when he smiled, she noticed the small scar above his left eyebrow that somehow made him more real, more human. "Ms. Chun," he said, extending his hand. "I'm David. Thank you for this opportunity." His handshake was firm, confident, but Maya noticed the slight tremor in his fingers, a vulnerability that contradicted his composed exterior. She found herself holding his gaze a moment longer than professional courtesy demanded, and when she finally let go of his hand, she felt the absence of his touch like a physical loss. "Please, call me Maya," she said, settling into her chair across from him. "Tell me about your vision for the Heartwell campaign." As David spoke about brand identity and emotional connection, Maya found herself studying the way his hands moved when he talked, the passion that lit up his features when he described his ideas. There was something magnetic about him, something that made her want to lean closer, to understand what drove him to create beauty from nothing. "I believe every campaign should tell a story that makes people feel less alone," he said, his voice carrying a weight that suggested he understood loneliness intimately. "When someone sees our work, they should recognize themselves in it, should feel understood." Maya nodded, but her mind was wandering to dangerous territory. She was imagining what it would be like to have those thoughtful eyes focused on her. Not as a colleague, but as a woman. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. The meeting ended with David officially welcomed to the team. But as the days passed, Maya found herself making excuses to visit his office. She would linger in the hallway, hoping to catch a glimpse of him bent over his sketches, completely absorbed in his work. She began to anticipate their interactions with an intensity that both surprised and concerned her. It was during their 3rd week of working together that everything changed. Maya had been staying late, trying to lose herself in quarterly reports, when she heard the soft sound of jazz music drifting from David's office. She found him there, sleeves rolled up, working by lamplight with a cup of coffee growing cold beside him. "You're still here," she said from the doorway, her voice softer than she intended. He looked up and she saw something in his expression that made her heart skip. "I could say the same about you. Can't sleep." Maya stepped into his office, drawn by the intimacy of the dimly lit space. "I have trouble with quiet nights. Too much time to think." David set down his pencil and really looked at her. "What do you think about?" The question hung in the air between them, loaded with possibility. Maya felt herself standing at a crossroads, knowing that her answer would change everything. She thought about her safe, predictable life, about the walls she'd built around her heart after her divorce 3 years ago. But looking at David in the soft lamplight, She realized she was tired of being safe. "I think about whether I'm brave enough to want something I never thought I could have," she said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. David stood slowly, his coffee cup forgotten. "What kind of something?" Maya felt her pulse quicken. "The kind that scares me because it matters too much." They stood facing each other in the quiet office, the city lights twinkling beyond the windows like scattered stars. Maya could hear her own heartbeat, could feel the weight of David's gaze as if it were a physical touch. "Maya," he said quietly, and her name sounded different in his voice, tender, full of longing. "I know this is complicated," she whispered. "I know there are 100 reasons why we shouldn't. But," he prompted, stepping closer, "but I've never felt anything like this before. This pull towards someone. This need to know everything about them. To understand what makes them laugh. What keeps them awake at night." David reached out, his fingers barely grazing her cheek. "You want to know what keeps me awake?" Maya nodded, afraid to speak. "Wondering if you feel even a fraction of what I feel when I look at you. Wondering if you notice how I find excuses to walk past your office. How I memorize the sound of your laugh." His thumb traced the line of her cheekbone. "Wondering if you know that I've been falling for you since the moment I walked into that conference room." The confession hung between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Maya felt tears gathering in her eyes, not from sadness, but from relief. She wasn't alone in this impossible longing. "I never imagined I could desire something like this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "This feeling of wanting to know someone completely, to let them see all of me, the messy parts, the broken parts." David's hand cupped her face, fully now, his thumb brushing away a tear she didn't realize had fallen. "Show me," he said simply. In that moment, Maya made a choice that would reshape her understanding of love, of vulnerability, of what it meant to truly connect with another person. She had spent years building walls, protecting herself from the kind of hurt that came with opening your heart completely. But looking into David's eyes, she realized that some things were worth the risk. The next few weeks unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance. They found reasons to work late together, to grab coffee before meetings, to linger in conversations that had nothing to do with campaigns or deadlines. Maya discovered that David had grown up in a small town in Colorado, that he had learned to draw by copying comic books in his grandmother's attic, that he had a scar on his palm from trying to carve his initials into a tree when he was 12. David learned that Maya had wanted to be a writer before practical concerns led her to marketing, that she still wrote poetry in a journal she kept hidden in her desk drawer, that she had a small tattoo of a compass on her wrist, a reminder to herself to stay true to her direction, even when the world felt uncertain. Their relationship remained professional on the surface, but underneath, something profound was growing. Maya found herself thinking about David at odd moments while brushing her teeth, during client meetings, in the quiet moments before sleep. She would catch herself smiling at nothing, remembering the way he had looked at her when she made a joke, or how he had unconsciously reached for her hand when they were reviewing layouts together. The tension between them was becoming almost unbearable. Maya would find herself standing close enough to David to catch the scent of his cologne, would let her fingers brush his when passing documents, would hold eye contact just a beat longer than necessary. She could see the want in his eyes, could feel the way he tensed when she was near. But they both maintained the careful boundaries that kept their connection from crossing into dangerous territory. It was a Friday evening when everything came to a head. The office was empty except for them, and they were celebrating a successful pitch of the Hartwell campaign. Maya had opened a bottle of wine she kept in her office for special occasions, and they sat on the small couch in her office, the formality of her desk between them forgotten. "To storytelling," David said, raising his glass. To taking risks, Maya replied, and they both knew she wasn't talking about the campaign. As they drank, their conversation grew more personal, more intimate. David told her about the relationship that had ended badly 2 years ago, about how he had stopped believing in the possibility of finding someone who would love him completely. Maya shared her own story, the marriage that had felt more like a business arrangement, the divorce that had left her feeling like a failure, the years of loneliness she had convinced herself she preferred. "I thought I was done with this," Maya said, gesturing between them. "This feeling of wanting someone so much it physically hurts." David set down his wine glass and turned to face her fully. "Maya, I need to tell you something." The seriousness in his voice made her stomach flutter with anticipation and fear. "What is it?" "I'm in love with you," he said, his voice steady despite the magnitude of his confession. "I know it's complicated. I know it changes everything, but I can't pretend anymore. I'm completely, utterly in love with you." Maya felt her world tilt on its axis. She had hoped, had dreamed, but hearing the words out loud made her feel like she was flying and falling at the same time. "David... I know you're my boss, I know there are policies and complications, but I can't spend another day pretending that what I feel for you is just professional admiration. You're the first thing I think about when I wake up, and the last thing on my mind before I sleep. I love your laugh, your intelligence, the way you care about everyone in this office, the way you make me want to be better at everything I do." Maya felt tears streaming down her face, but she was smiling. "I love you too," she whispered, and saying it felt like coming home after a long journey. David's face transformed with relief and joy. "Really? Really?" Maya laughed, wiping her eyes. "I've been terrified to admit it, even to myself. But I'm madly, completely in love with you." They sat looking at each other in the lamplight, both afraid to move, afraid to break the spell of this moment. Finally, David reached out and took her hand. "What do we do now?" he asked. Maya thought about all the complications, the office policies, the potential gossip, the risk to both their careers. But then she looked at David, at this man who had awakened something in her she thought was dead forever, and she knew that some things were worth fighting for. "We figure it out," she said. "Together." David brought her hand to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to her palm. "I want to do this right, Maya. I want to be worthy of what you're giving me." "You already are," she said, and meant it completely. They talked until dawn, making plans and promises, sharing dreams and fears. Maya told David about her secret. Wished to travel to Italy, to write a book someday, to have a garden where she could grow herbs and flowers. David shared his dream of opening his own design studio, of creating art that mattered, of building a life with someone who understood his passion for beauty and meaning. As the sun rose over the city, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Maya felt something she hadn't experienced in years: hope. Not just for herself, but for the possibility of building something beautiful with another person. "I never imagined I could desire something like this," she said, watching David's face in the morning light. "What?" "This feeling of completeness, of finding someone who sees me, really sees me, and chooses to love me anyway." She touched his face gently. "I spent so long protecting myself from this kind of vulnerability, but with you, it doesn't feel dangerous. It feels like coming alive." David turned his face into her palm, his eyes closing at the simple contact. "I know exactly what you mean. I thought I was done with love, done with believing in it. But you've changed everything." They made the decision to be transparent with HR, to follow proper procedures while they navigated their new relationship. It would be complicated, would require careful boundaries and probably some difficult conversations, but they were both committed to making it work. The months that followed were a revelation for Maya. She had forgotten what it felt like to wake up excited about the day ahead, to have someone to share small victories and daily struggles with. David brought laughter back into her life, but more than that, he brought a depth of connection she had never experienced. They learned to balance their professional and personal lives, finding ways to support each other's work while maintaining appropriate boundaries in the office. Maya discovered that loving David made her a better leader, more empathetic, more creative, more willing to take risks. Their first official date was a small Italian restaurant David had discovered, where they sat in a corner booth and talked for hours about everything and nothing. Maya watched David's hands as he described his latest project, and felt that familiar flutter of attraction mixed with something deeper, a sense of partnership, of shared purpose. "I have something for you," David said as they were finishing. "Dessert." He pulled out a small wrapped package, his expression shy and hopeful. Maya unwrapped it carefully, finding a small leather journal with her initials embossed on the cover. "David, it's beautiful. I thought you might want to start writing again," he said. "Your poems, your stories. I believe in your talent, Maya. Even if you don't yet." Maya felt tears gathering in her eyes. It was such a thoughtful gift, one that showed how carefully he had listened to her dreams and fears. "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing me, for believing in me." "Always," he said, reaching across the table to take her hand. As they walked back to Maya's apartment that night, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. She had never imagined that love could feel like this, not just passion and desire, but a deep sense of companionship, of having found someone who understood her completely. Standing in her doorway, Maya looked up at David's face in the porch light. "I never imagined I could desire something like this," she said, echoing the words that had started their journey. "What?" David asked, his hands resting gently on her waist. "This feeling of perfect rightness, of finding someone who makes me want to be brave, who makes me believe in possibility again." She reached up to touch his face. "I love you, David Martinez, completely, eternally, with everything I am." David's kiss was soft and sweet, full of promise and tenderness. When they parted, he rested his forehead against hers. "I love you too, Maya-chan. More than I ever thought possible." As Maya unlocked her door, she knew that this was just the beginning of their story. There would be challenges ahead, moments of doubt and difficulty, but for the first time in her life, she felt ready to face them with someone by her side. Inside her apartment, David noticed the small changes Maya had made: fresh flowers on the table, candles lit in the living room, a sense of warmth and welcome that hadn't been there before. It was as if falling in love had awakened something in her that had been sleeping, had reminded her that life was meant to be lived fully, not just endured. They sat on her couch, Maya curled against David's side, both of them marveling at the simple pleasure of being together. The rain had stopped, and through the window, they could see stars appearing in the clear night sky. "What are you thinking about?" David asked, his fingers tracing patterns on Maya's arm. "The future," Maya sighed, surprising herself with the admission. "For the first time in years, I'm excited about what comes next." David pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "Me too. I feel like my whole life has been leading to this moment." "To you." Maya turned in his arms to face him, seeing her own wonder and joy reflected in his eyes. "I never imagined I could desire something like this," she repeated, but this time the words held a different meaning, not just about love, but about the life they were building together, the future they were creating one day at a time. "Neither did I," David said, his voice full of promise. "But I'm so grateful we found it." As they held each other in the soft lamplight, Maya felt a sense of completeness she had never experienced before. She had found not just love but partnership. Not just passion, but profound connection. The future stretched before them, full of possibility and promise. And for the first time in her life, Maya was ready to embrace it all. She had never imagined she could desire something like this. This perfect blend of friendship and passion, of understanding and mystery, of safety and adventure. But now that she had found it, she knew she would spend the rest of her life cherishing and protecting the love that had changed everything. The story of Maya and David was just beginning, but already it was everything she had never dared to dream of, a love that made her braver, kinder, more alive than she had ever been before. And as she drifted off to sleep in David's arms, Maya smiled, knowing that sometimes the most beautiful surprises come when we least expect them, when we're brave enough to open our hearts to the possibility of something extraordinary. In the end, Maya learned that desire wasn't just about wanting someone. It was about wanting to become the best version of yourself in love with them, about wanting to build something beautiful together that neither of you could create alone. And that was something worth desiring, worth fighting for, worth cherishing for a lifetime.